Namaste, everyone. First of all, just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm very grateful that I'm able to share my experiences and reflections with everyone today. So I'll just start off with a little introduction about me. So my name is Harshita, and I am currently a second year pharmacy student at James Cook University, Townsville. I was born in India and I moved to Australia in 2016 when I was around 9 years old. And growing up in India, being Hindu was simply a part of my everyday life. And our festivals, traditions, and values, they were naturally woven into the community around us. So as a child, I never really stopped to think about what it meant to be Hindu. It was simply in the way we lived. And personally, moving to Australia was both an exciting and daunting new chapter for me and a very significant change. I was suddenly surrounded by people from many different cultures, traditions, and backgrounds. And while that diversity was something I came to appreciate, it also made me realize that staying connected to my own heritage would require a much more conscious effort. And looking back, I feel incredibly fortunate that my parents enrolled me and my sister in Vishwa Hindu Parishad's Bala Samskar Kendra. They wanted us to strengthen our knowledge of our culture and ensure that we remain connected to our roots. For me, Bala Samskar Kendra became much more than a place to learn. It became a space where I began to understand not only what we practiced, but why we practiced it. Encouraged me to ask questions, seek understanding, and develop a deeper appreciation of Hindu Dharma. And it has played a significant role in shaping the reflections I would like to share today. So the first discussion question asks, what does being a Hindu mean to you? And how do you communicate this understanding to your family and close friends? So when I first reflected on this question, I realized that I understood what it meant to be Hindu long before I could explain it. I did not learn Hindu Dharma by first reading scriptures or studying philosophy. I learned it by observing the people around me. I watched my parents offer prayers each morning. I celebrated festivals with family. I grew up listening to stories from the Ramayana and Mahabharata. And I learned to respect my elders, express gratitude, remove my shoes before entering a sacred place, and recognize the importance of humility and service. Before I could define Hindu Dharma, I had already begun experiencing it through everyday life. And as I've grown older, I have come to appreciate that this is one of the unique strengths of Hindu Dharma. It is not simply a philosophy that we study, it is a way of life that shapes how we think, behave, and interact with others. For me, being Hindu means striving to ensure that the values of dharma, compassion, humility, gratitude, and selfless service are reflected not only during religious occasions, but in my everyday actions. One thought that's remained with me is that many people will never encounter Hindu Dharma through our scriptures. Instead, they encounter it through us. For some, we may be the first or perhaps the only Hindu that they know personally. And whether we realize it or not, our words, actions, and conduct often become their introduction to our faith. And that is both a privilege and a responsibility. It reminds me that living according to our values is just as important as understanding them. Integrity, kindness, and respect are not simply ideals that we speak about. They are qualities that should be visible in the way we treat others every day. Communicating this understanding to my family and close friends therefore extends beyond conversations alone. It happens through shared experiences like praying together, celebrating festivals together, participating in seva, supporting one another, and continuing to learn together. Just as importantly, it happens by encouraging one another to ask questions and understand the meaning behind our traditions. I believe that understanding strengthens conviction, and conviction enables our practices to become genuine expressions of our faith rather than habits followed without reflection. And in Australia, we are one of the world's most multicultural societies. So often when we think about communicating Hindu Dharma, we think about explaining our festivals, customs, or philosophy. And while these are certainly important, I believe that the strongest expression of a Hindu worldview is ultimately the character of a Hindu. People may not remember every explanation we give them, but they will remember how we made them feel. They remember integrity, compassion, humility, and respect. So when these values consistently guide our actions, they communicate the essence of Hindu Dharma more effectively than words alone. And as someone studying pharmacy, this is something that I reflect on often, where pharmacy is built upon trust, compassion, ethical responsibility, and service to others. And the more I progress, the more I recognize that these are not simply professional expectations. These are values that Hindu Dharma has encouraged me to develop throughout my life. They remind me that being a Hindu is not something confined to the mandir or to religious celebrations. It is something I carry into every interaction and conversation. At the same time, I believe preserving and communicating Hindu Dharma cannot rest solely on individual efforts. It is also a collective responsibility. The communities play an essential role in ensuring that our traditions remain meaningful and relevant for future generations. We preserve Hindu Dharma when we create opportunities for young people to learn and ask questions. We preserve it through organizations, through community gatherings, festivals, youth programs, and acts of seva that bring people together. We preserve it by supporting one another, responding to misunderstandings with knowledge and respect, and contributing positively to the wider Australian community. And in doing so, we are not simply preserving an ancient tradition, we are ensuring that Hindu Dharma continues to be understood, valued, and lived within contemporary Australian society. And when I think about heritage, I don't immediately think about preserving traditions alone. I think about preserving meaning. Traditions are incredibly valuable because they connect us to the generations before us. But they become truly meaningful when we understand the purpose behind them. If future generations know only what to do but never understand why to do it, then those traditions risk becoming routine rather than living expressions of Hindu Dharma. For this reason, I believe our responsibility is not simply to pass down practices, but to pass down understanding. We should encourage curiosity, welcome question, and create such environments where young people feel comfortable exploring the significance behind our festivals, prayers, and values. And when people understand the purpose behind what they inherit, they are far more likely to preserve it with sincerity and conviction. And reflecting on my own journey, this is one of the greatest gifts that Vishwa Hindu Parishad's Bala Samskar Kendra has given me. And it strengthened the foundations that my family had already established at home and helped me develop a deeper appreciation of my heritage. Because alongside learning our scriptures, language, and traditions, we were encouraged to develop as individuals through leadership, public speaking, teamwork, and community involvement. We learned how to communicate confidently, think critically, and represent Hindu Dharma with understanding and respect. Looking back, I realized that these experiences were about much more than developing practical skills. They were about preparing young Hindus to contribute meaningfully to both our own community and to the broader Australian society. And I hope future generations continue to have opportunities like this because, as I've mentioned before, preserving Hindu Dharma is something we achieve collectively through our homes, our organizations, communities, and our willingness to invest in the next generation. So when we work together, we create that environment where young people do not feel disconnected from their heritage, but instead grow to understand it, value it, and confidently carry it forward. I believe every generation inherits Hindu Dharma, but they also carry the responsibility of strengthening it before passing it on. And that responsibility extends beyond preserving our rituals and customs. It involves preserving the understanding, values, and sense of community that give those traditions their meaning. So for me, being Hindu is not measured by how much philosophy I can quote or how many traditions I can describe. It is measured by whether the values I have inherited are reflected in the way I live, the way I serve others, and the way I contribute to my community. If we can continue to deepen our own understanding, support one another as a community, and inspire future generations to do the same, then I believe Hindu Dharma will continue to flourish, not only because it has been preserved, but because it has been lived with knowledge, purpose, and conviction. Thank you.